RM Sotheby's is the world's largest collector car auction house by total sales. They are the preeminent market maker of high-quality collector cars and collections, regardless of size or complexity. By working in partnership with the Sotheby's team and its network of 80 offices in 40 countries, RM Sotheby's has established the largest client network of any collector car auction house in the world. Join the RM Sotheby's family by connecting with one of their car specialists at rmsotheby's.com or contact me directly at GStanley at rmsotheby's.com. LLC. All right, welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. For this episode, if you haven't seen it, I had a great time with Jay Leno on Jay Leno's Garage on YouTube, and it was quite a blast. It's been very, very well received. I thought I would record some of the follow-ups from that episode. As you know, the comment section of YouTube is a great place to find out where you're wrong on stuff, and I was wrong on a few things, so I do want to highlight those. Nobody's perfect. In my defense, trying to remember a bunch of information and facts while talking to Jay Leno with a camera running is not as easy as it seems. So, yes, I'm going to get stuff wrong pretty much every time I speak, but I try to get 90% of it correct. Now, the negative comments, I was really surprised, were very minimal. As of right now, we're at 231,000 views, over 1,000 comments, and I could probably count the negative comments in one or two hands. So, great job out there, folks, for being positive on the internet, which I know at times can be very, very difficult. If you're watching on YouTube, I do have my doors and my window open. It's a bright, sunny day here in Ohio. The birds are literally chirping, and my cat is looking at the birds outside the window. So you might hear some chirping in the background. I'm just going to keep it because it's just a nice change of pace. All right, so if you're joining me this weekend at the Cincinnati Concours d'Elegance, look for the GTO. We are having some fuel issues right now. For some reason, somewhere, a fuel hose is getting clamped up when we accelerate. So the car is actually shutting down. We've put on 4 different fuel pumps, trying to narrow it down. I'm so glad it did not break down while Jay was driving the car. And if you've seen the video, you saw that he drove it fairly strong. So also now, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm just going to flow over some video, behind-the-scenes video and pictures from that interview on his Jay Leno's Garage, in his garage. I know you don't need to see my face all the time, so I thought I would just have these going on just for some fun stuff. So if you've seen the video 1 or 2 times, you'll probably recognize some of the behind-the-scenes shots that my wife took, as well as the daughters, while they were not on film. So pretty cool. What an experience. I don't know if I've said it. I think I've said it on this podcast, but I'm supposed to be back out there again this fall to film my 65 my 65 Mustang Fastback Hypo, because it's a fun barn find story. I found it under a tarp in Florida, so we're going to go over that. I'm really looking forward to that. So what am I going to cover on this episode? Well, I'm going to tell you what I got wrong. I'm going to tell you what Jay got wrong, because Jay got a couple things wrong. I'm going to tell you some of the stuff that was filmed but did not make it to the final product. It was left on the cutting room floor. Let's see, what else? Oh, I also want to share some of my favorite comments. And so if you're listening to this podcast for the first time and you're doing so because I shot you a note saying I loved your comments and it would be on YouTube, thank you for joining me. It would be on the podcast. Thank you for joining me on the Collector Car Podcast. It's nice to give shout-outs to positive comments, I must say. And there were some really great ones. All right, let's start with what was edited out or not filmed. Now, one thing that was not filmed, and Jay was aware of it, is if you know the GTO, and you can see it in a couple of the shots, on the back left rear quarter panel, on top where the trunk lid comes up, there's some paint damage. And now that damage is from when it was in 40 years of storage. And I'll throw the pictures up on here so you can see what it looked like. It was covered up and a bunch of stuff was put over the GTO. Well, one of those things was brake fluid, unfortunately, that fell over and seeped into the paint of the car. So there is some paint damage on the back of the car. Now, I did not touch it. I did not change that. I did not correct that. Reason being is if you say a paint job is 98% original, it's only had a couple touch-ups. If I were buying the car, I would say, is that really 98% original, or is that 75% or 50%? And so I chose to leave the car as is with the damage so the originality could come through. Jay was aware of that. We talked about it. We didn't actually talk about it while the cameras were rolling, which I thought was interesting. He did say he wanted to make, us look as good as possible. The car looked great. It was a positive show to share our passion for cars. So that might be why he didn't bring it up. But anyways, just wanted to mention that. Something else that wasn't mentioned, two other things, which kind of surprised me because they were to go with the fun facts about the car, is the last three digits of the VIN are 389, the same numbers as the cubic inches of the car. So I thought that was really cool, the last three digits. I did say that on the interview with Jay, but that was cut for some reason. And then I heard about the car on the owner's birthday, and I bought the car on his wife's birthday. So if you saw the two daughters on the show, I heard about the car on their dad's birthday. I bought the car on their mother's birthday, who had both passed away. So that was really, really neat. And when I was making an offer on a car and they were thinking about accepting my offer, I said, well, you realize if you accept my offer today, I will have bought the car on your mom's birthday, which definitely helped out a bit. All right, now let's talk about some of the stuff I got wrong. There was a few things. Let's see. First off, the Tiger horn. So the Tiger horn was repaired, it was fixed, and I had never tested it with the daughters in my presence. So the first time they heard it since they were little girls was on the Jay Leno show. And as you watch the Jay Leno show, you'll hear, he lights up and he starts laughing. He says it sounds like a bunch of termites. Well, it turns out, apparently the horn's not totally fixed yet because they said it sounded much more menacing when they were little girls. So when you hear the horn at the Cincinnati Concours, it's not as loud apparently as it was 40 years ago. So that's my bad. I should have played it for them, so they could verify if it sounded like it did originally. Let's see. The other thing I got wrong, and boy, they beat me up on this, was big block versus small block. The 389 is not a big block engine compared to the 326. They are the same engine block size. So that goes back to me not knowing a ton about Pontiacs. I'm the first to admit it. If you listen to this podcast, I grew up judging Mustangs. In Mustangs, you have the small blocks and the big blocks. The small blocks would be the 260, the 289, and the 302, at least from the 1960s. And the big blocks, where it was physically a larger engine block, would be the 390, 428s, and 429s. So in my automotive vernacular, I always associated anything in the high 300s, cubic inch wise, as being a big block, when in fact that one was not. So that was my bad. All right, what else did I get wrong? Yes, I did get, I got more wrong than I thought. For the paint meter measurements, I said millimeters, I should have said mils. Now that was just being flustered on camera with Jay. Obviously, if it were 4 millimeters, that is fairly significant. So that was my bad. People could not seem to let go of that in the comment section, which is pretty funny. All right, what else did I get wrong? I mentioned Tiger Gold was, when you have a custom ordered or one of the 5 special paint order cars, you can't tell what color it is by looking at the data sheet because it doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you on the build sheet, doesn't tell you on the invoice, wouldn't tell you on the window sticker. The only place it would tell you would be on the build sheet. Now, obviously, I knew this car was originally Tiger Gold because it was unrestored and original. Part of that was cut out. I just wanted folks to know that, if you did buy a stripped down bare metal GTO that was a special paint car, you really didn't have any way to tell what it was in the past if it was truly stripped down unless you had the build sheet. All right, let's see. 2 other mistakes I made. When I was talking about the hubcaps, I said the Pontiac Motor Company, PMC, and apparently it was Pontiac Motor Division, so PMD. So someone was nice enough to correct me on that. And the last thing I messed up was when I said that no trees were injured in the making of this car, referring to the simulated wood grain veneer on the dash and in the interior. Well, apparently for 1966, that was real wood veneer. So some trees were injured in the making of that car. So it just pains me to my heart. So, all right, let's see. The first person that called out the big block versus small block mistake was Doug Hopkins Jr. He said Pontiac didn't have big blocks and small blocks, so you know. So he was polite and nice in his comments of correction. All right, let's see. The other thing I wasn't 100% sure, and I haven't checked my database, is I kind of blurted out what I thought was the engine code for a 3D9 Tri-Power. Honestly, I couldn't remember at the time. I think I got it correct. I have not gone back to see. Now, what did Jay get wrong? Jay really didn't get much wrong. He did say that the carburetors, the Tri-Power was in the trunk, and it was dealer installed. It wasn't factory installed. That was not correct. Now, that might have been correct for 1964. I don't know. If you go back to his videos, he did interview someone with a 1964 GTO with Tri-Power, and that's where that fact came from. The guy actually said it. He popped open the trunk of the car and he had the Tri-Power displayed as it would have been displayed when you bought the car. So that's where Jay got that fact, was from a previous guest. The other thing Jay mentioned, which I thought was hilarious because people just had to show their knowledge or their skills at Googling, he mentioned what $4,000 in 1966 would be today. He said it was somewhere around $100,000. There's so many comments in the comment section saying that it was just under $40,000. So I thought that was fairly funny. The first person to do so was Kevin J. Stroll, I believe. He said $4,200 equals $4,645.11 today for anyone interested. Still a way cool car. So that was a nice way to point out misinformation. And then Jay called the interior the Tiger interior. I'm not familiar with that. It being called that. Could be, maybe not. I haven't had a chance to look it up, but that just kind of stuck out to me when I looked at the video. All right, I think that was it for what I missed and what Jay missed and some of the stuff that was not covered. What I would like to do now is kind of talk about before I go forward, didn't the daughters do a fantastic job? I thought they were just outstanding. I loved the fact that they were able to fly out and do it with me because it just added so much more to the history of the car. You could really see their emotions in their faces when they spoke, and I loved the gnawing of the back of the seat with Lisa's teeth marks. That was just one of my favorite parts. Okay, so I want to talk and share some of my favorite comments from the comment section. Now, a lot of the funny comments were about Jay's face when the tiger horn blew. He just thought that was the funniest thing. His face really lit up, and you can see Jay was having a good time trying to figure out exactly what a tiger horn was. Now, this is from Stingray Official on YouTube. My dad had this exact car, like exact. Does my dad have another family? ? I thought that was one of the funniest, wittiest comments in the comment section. Great job. All right, next is Empty Manual. I hope this guy isn't just on the show to promote this car to sell it in a year or two. It would be great if he ends up being a proper car guy and caretaker of it. Now, this came up a couple times. I actually responded in depth in the comment section. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with this car. I promised the family I was going to share it with the world, and doing so on the Jay Leno show. I feel really great about that. Obviously, it'll be at Cincinnati Concours. It's going to be at Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. It might be at the Pontiac Nationals in Norwalk, Ohio in July. I just want to get it out there and share it. I don't know if I'm the person to take care of an unrestored car because I love driving my cars. And if you know me, you know that my average tenure for owning a car is about 5 years. And I only have spots for 2. So right now it's just a Mustang and the GTO. I had a 66 Mustang that I sold after 5 years to buy a Porsche 911. I had that for 5 years. I sold that when I found the Hypo Mustang. Still have the Hypo Mustang, so when this GTO came along, I had to buy a lift so I could fit both of them in my garage. Now, if something else comes along, one of the 2 cars needs to go. I don't want to sell either one of them, but I also want to have other experiences with collector cars. So I feel like I'm the proper guy and caretaker for it right now. Am I the lifetime guy? Well, unless I win the lottery and buy a warehouse somewhere, I am not. But if that happens, I will gladly keep it forever. All right, next is Michael Morgan, 6355. Hello, Jay. My name is Michael Morgan, and I was born and raised in Chillicothe, Ohio. So this is someone who is local to where this car was found and was in storage for 40 years and spent his entire life. I think Bobby Morgan was a distant relative, but not positive. But my family knew Bobby, and my dad grew up with Bobby. And I think at one time even worked with Bobby before he had the Sunoco station. I had a 1987 Grand National Buick and would always get my gas there. And when I pulled in, Bobby would offer to pump it for me, and we would talk about cars and how quick my National was. And of course, he'd ask me how my dad was too. How cool is that? We had a couple of the local folks in Chillicothe chime in on the comment section. All right, next is at BSU 1960. This was such a special episode, talking about the owner and all the details, the receipts, the fact he owned a Sunoco gas station, and clearly this was his pride and joy. He knew a collectible car when he ordered it, and he also knew to hold its value, not to deviate from stock, as the previous collector cars worth a lot of money were the unmolested originals. There were many that were ruined from the 1930s, and well, anything but to truly keep it special. And since he ordered the red wheel wells, this man loved this car, and it shows. Then to replicate the picture from 1966 with the daughters and to bring them on the show now just really gives it such warmth and depth. Gnawing on the seats, LOL, I loved everything about it, down to the special order Tiger Gold paint can in the trunk, to the Tiger horn, and the fact it had factory AC. And with the better gear ratio, you can see and feel the suitability of the car, set up for cruising comfortably, perfectly suited for a race car driver who wanted a classy, comfortable ride that could hold its own on the highways and interstates. No, this was exemplary and gave this a life that I'm sure the owner is really proud of. Yeah, some great stuff here. It continues to go on for a little bit longer. Let's see, the super special and unique way, just like all of your episodes, each a home run. So that was very cool. Thank you for taking the time to enter that and to put it in the comment section. One thing I didn't mention, one of the comments came through. They were asking, like, well, why did it need an engine rebuild with only 58,000 miles on it? Well, Bobby Morgan was a race car driver. Now, while he didn't modify the GTO, he did drive it very hard. And so those 58,000 miles were more like 100,000 miles on a 1960s engine. So it needed a rebuild. All right, next is check bound. It's great when a really good expert enthusiast is entrusted with a rare car that the original owners know will be taken care of to better the museum attention to its protection. I wish you many safe miles in it. Cars are for driving. Greeting from Prague. Oh, that's pretty cool. All the way from overseas. Next is Polly.x. The Swedish King has a Pontiac GTO as well. That's interesting. I got to Google that. I got to find out what kind of GTO the Swedish King has. All right, a few more here. Coden-Sorlerchen2925. Sorry, I butchered your handle there. Fantastic episode. We over here in Germany know little about the 60s and 70s of the American car industry. Good that you bring up all these exotic cars, so they consider this an exotic car. Muscle cars are something special. How to make a person spend a lifelong salary on a car. Then the emissions policy came along. All right, next is Eric's Buell. I promised the family I would share it with the world. He's quoting me. What a generous attitude. I suggest that you start the sharing with me, please. Give me the keys and I'll buy the petrol. Sorry, this American beauty demands gasoline. Sounds better. Wonderful chat on a trip in a car. All right, next is Panama Floyd 1469. No debate over here at the Collector Car Podcast, even from this import guy. Pontiac GTO was the first muscle car. Thanks for bringing it out. I was only about 4 years old when the 66 came along. Shocked to see one still so stock. Amazing, beautiful car. Oh, and seriously digging the Al Hirt 8-track. He was one of my mom's favorites. Rest in peace, Bobby Morgan, number 66. I'm a road racer, but love me some short ovals. Hey, I'm an American. We still have a dirt one here in Northwest Atlanta Metro. I'll be in Atlanta in a few weeks. I need to check that out. All right, next is OU 95 grad. My dad has told me for years that this car was in existence. He knew the owner. My dad remembers the car sitting on the showroom floor. We live very close to where it was stored, as well as the original dealership. Very, very cool to finally see it. That's really cool. All right, got about 4 more here. Aussie 2UGA. My father worked for the Attorney General in Florida during the 60s in the beverage department. Their job was to deter illegal alcohol stills and transportation by conducting raids. After several embarrassing examples of being outrun in the ensuing chases, Florida turned to Pontiac and the GTO to try to keep the souped-up moonshiners' cars in sight. The GTO proved so effective in chasing them down, yielding many more successful captures. Florida demanded GTOs for all of their agents in the department. My father said he would immediately take each year's model over to the Midas muffler shop and have them install bypass into the exhaust. This allowed them to creep up quietly onto the scene. Then when he pulled the knob on the dash, a cable diverted the exhaust straight out of the headers onto the ground, sounding like an engine twice its size. Probably didn't produce much more horsepower, but definitely raised the adrenaline levels of all involved. What a different era of life we have lived in. All right. Next is Thanks for Nothing. Thanks for nothing. I teared up a bit when Jay talked about Sunday drives with the kids going out to get ice cream. They weren't far removed from World War II. Imagine the quiet, comfortable joy of taking your children out for a drive and getting ice cream. And people didn't take it for granted. They appreciated the lives they had living in America. All right, next is M. White Law 8569. Personally, I don't think it could have gone better in person. I got a feeling you'll take good care of it. Cool deal, man. Love the story too. Oh, thanks. That's nice of you. All right, two more. Scott Muse Garrett, 15. What a car. Unbelievable survivor. You're not going to find a nicer original car than this. Crazy. And it's fantastic that Greg also got the great backstory to go with it. Nice to have his daughters there to present the car as well. Thanks, Jay and crew. Your episodes are always great, but this one was a bit more special. He must have been Canadian because he threw in a Canadian flag. All right, and lastly, we have Quig89GMC. How very nice that the two daughters of the original owner got to be on the episode and share their father's backstory. This is how to pay respect correctly to the man who preserved the car. Thank you for a marvelous episode. All right, that's it. Thanks for joining me. I am getting ready for the Cincinnati Concord Elegance. I need to get the GTO running. So be sure to say hello so you can see me, see the car, and get your poker chip because I have the limited edition poker chips here somewhere. I'll have them with me on Sunday. And, if I don't see you there, maybe I'll see you in Chicago at Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. Go to their Facebook page. They did a nice post about it. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to all of you next week.